Hi everyone, welcome back to GameMaker Cast. It's Mickey, and in this video we're going to be bringing our blocky block enemy to life. Right now you can see the AI is done, and we did that in the previous lesson. However, there's no real animation happening when the enemy falls down towards our player. Now we're going to be using an animation state machine to handle this for us. So in the previous lesson we actually figured out what state our enemy is in using a state machine here. And we're going to be adding on to this so we can easily tell, depending on the current state, what animation we need to play. So let's actually open up our scripts and go to our states, and here at the bottom we're going to add a new animation state for our blocky block character. I'll just use a new enumerator, and I'll just actually call this animation blocky block state, and I might actually go back and change the player animation state just to start with animation. But anyway, that is regardless of the fact. So what we'll do here is we're going to put in the different animations that we have. If you've been following along, you can see that we have a bunch of different animations. So we want to make sure that they match up properly. So we have an idle animation, looking left. Then we have a look left, looking right, look right, blink, and then we have a falling down animation. Now let's see, that should turn all red, so everything is good there. So we have our animation states here. We're going to have to go to our object, and let's actually put the current animation state, or sorry, our current state machine into a region. So we'll just say region, and let's just call it state machine, and we'll take our only case statement that we have, we'll indent it, and then say end region. And we're just doing this so we can have our code a little bit cleaner here. So we should be able to collapse that now. Underneath, we're going to have a new region called animation state machine, and we will end that region. Then we want to make sure this is at the bottom, so whatever state we change into, the sprite's going to get updated at the end. Now let's start off with some pretty basic animations. So in the create event, let's see here, we'll actually add a comment for states. We need a variable to hold on to our animation state. So we'll say animation state. Then obviously we need to access the new animation states that we made within our script. So we'll start typing animation, and it showed up there, and we will just set it to the idle state. Now once that's done, we can go to our step event, and we can start writing our switch statement here. We'll just say switch animation state, and depending on what state it is, so case animation blocky state dot idle, then what we wanted to do is anything in here just like before. So I'll actually copy this, and I'm going to paste all of these out. I can't remember how many we have, so we'll just do this. And now it's just going to be me going through each one and adding them up. So I'm going to zoom out here. Even though you might not be able to see it that great, it's fine. I'm just basically copying and pasting the different states that we have so that we can be done with this. All right, close. Let's zoom back in. That's too far. Okay. So now we have all of the different states that we're able to go into. What do we want to do? Well, in the idle state, this is pretty easy. All we want to do is we want to show the idle sprite. However, what we're going to have to do is actually import them first. Inside the enemy, actually, I guess we do have the idle sprite here first, so we can actually use that. We'll say sprite index equals SPR blocky block idle. And we also want to make sure our image speed set to 0 because we don't have any animation. We don't want anything happening there. So while we are at this state, let's actually copy in the rest of the images that we have. So we had let's see here, we have looking left and looking right. We can drag and drop in, and we'll have to change the names of those in 1 second. The idle one is done, and then we'll choose the down one. Now I only did these 3 because they are single images. They're not image strips or anything like that. SPR. And the other thing we need to do is make sure that they are in the middle center, because that is what our original sprite was set to. We had it the anchor in the middle center. So we're done with that one. We need middle center, change the aim, and our right is done, left is done, and down is done. Now the one thing you might notice here is we have 64 and these ones are 72. So I'm going to edit the image and then just say trim, then close it back out, make sure it's middle center, and it's set to 64. So let's make sure that that is done as well. Edit, trim, close, and finally edit and trim, and then close and close. Now we have the looking left, looking right, so we need the different animations here, which would be the look left and look right, and then the blink. So let's do SPR blocky block blink, and 64 by 64 is what we need. We'll say edit, and we want to import the strip image, and I'm just going to take my directory here and paste it up top, and I will use the blink. Now the settings that I'm going to be using are 64 by 64, and we have 4 frames in this instance, and then we just really need to set the offsets here. So we'll just set it to 4 and 4, and that should come in just fine. Looks okay, so we'll hit convert, and that worked fine. We'll make sure we set our anchor, and now we have 2 more to go. SPR blocky block, this was look left, and this is a tedious task, so feel free to skip ahead. Look left is this one. Now the nice thing, all the settings are already here. The only thing I have to change is the frames that I have. So I'll convert, center, and then last but not least, blocky block look right. We'll do edit, import, grab the right one, and convert, and change our anchor point. Alright, so now that that is all done, let's go back to our enemy, and let's see. We have the animation state of idle. Let's do falling down because these are pretty easy ones. With this one, the falling down, again, we'll just set our sprite index, and we want to make sure it's equal to the sprite of, I believe it's down. Yep, down. And we want to make sure that we have no image speed on this one as well. Now, even though we have this here, how do we transfer into these different animation states? And that's where this original state machine comes in. So right here in the idle state, we know that we are in the current idle animation. So we could just say animation state equals animation blocky block dot idle. And that will set the animation speed for that one. And we also know that when we are falling down, well, we know what state we're in here, so we could set this at the top. We could say instead of idle, what it's going to be doing is falling down. Now, the only thing that we might want to do is in the waiting state, let's also change it to idle. And in the retracting state, we will also have the idle animation. Alright, let's hit F5 and see if that brings our character to life a little bit here. So when we go near him, hopefully he'll animate. Actually, there we go, and back to normal, and back up. And we can do that one and that one. Okay, so that's kind of bringing him a little bit to life. The only thing I want to do next is some blinking and randomly looking left and right. So if we go down to the animation state machine for the looking left and look left, the look left is not animated, so we'll start with that one. We'll say look left is going to equal the sprite index, and we're going to change it to blocky block look left, and we're going to make sure that this is that is the animated one. So this is going to be not look left, but looking left, and make sure that we put it in the right case then. And we will copy the exact same code into the looking right, and then we will just change the sprite to be looking right and the image speed of 0. Now for the look left, we'll copy this in, and in here we want to say look left for the sprite. The image speed is going to be 1. Now this is an animated sprite, so we need to say when we are on the last frame we want to transition out. And how we do that is with a simple if statement. So all we need to do is we will say in here, we will say if the image underscore index is bigger than the image underscore number, so how many frames that this specific sprite has, minus 1, then we can just change our animation state to this guy right here. So we'll say animation state equals the animation blocky state looking not right, but looking left. Now I'm actually going to move this up so it doesn't get confusing. So this one is going to happen first. We'll cause our blocky block guy to start looking left. We will run the animation. Then when we are on the last frame, we will change the animation state to looking left. And then we should be in here. So what this means is for the look right, we can copy in this if statement. And we want it to be, let me see here. We're getting mixed up here. All right, look left is doing that. So this if statement actually needs to go into look right, and we will move this entire case statement up 1. Okay, there we go. Let me expand this a little bit. So look right is going to be the same as look left, where we have a sprite index of look right. We are going to run our animation. If our animation is on the last frame, then we are going to set the new animation state to looking right, which is not animated. And then the only thing that we really need to do here is wait a couple seconds, or wait a second, before changing back to the idle state. So to do that, let's create a new variable. You can see we have some timers in here already. I'm going to create a new timer called animation timer, and I'm actually going to, let me actually use 2 of them, and I'll explain in 1 second. So the animation timer will be room speed times 0.05, so that's half a second, and we'll set this animation timer to the animation timer we created above. So what I'm doing here is I'm just assigning a variable that I will call each time instead of doing a calculation. So it'll just speed up in case we have a bunch of different enemies, or a bunch of enemies the same. So we'll take our animation timer, and when we have finished looking left or right, we want to make sure we set the animation timer back to whatever it is supposed to be. And then in the looking left, where we are just looking left, we will say animation timer minus equals 1. And then if the animation underscore timer is less or equal than 0, then we can set our animation state back to the animation state blocky block idle. And we can copy this code and we can put it into the looking right. And let me see here. Let me just go over it one more time. So in here we'll have some code, randomly choose look left or right and blink. If we choose looking left, we will run the animation. We will check to see if we are on the last frame of the animation. If we are, we set our timer, which is just going to wait. We come down here, we set our sprite index to looking left. We don't want it to animate, and then we wait for that half a second, and then we go back to idle. So really the only thing in here is going to be choosing if we're going to look left or right, or if we are going to be blinking. So let me actually write some of that code, and then I'm going to leave it up to you to finish the blinking state here. You have all the parts that you need, however, I'll save that for the next video. So right here we can say, actually let's create a new variable. Let's go back to our crate and let's choose let's do another one called underscore animation chance equals room speed times, and let's see here, let's do room speed times 0.5. And I'll explain in 1 second what we're doing here. There we go. So I don't want the chance to blink or look left or right to happen 60 times in a single second. I'm going to have a timer countdown which is set to half a second. So every half second it's going to see if it can blink or not. Instead of running 60 times a second, we'll try once every half second. So that means that we will use our animation underscore chance, or actually we'll just do animation underscore timer chance. Make sure that we have that. And in our step event, we'll say that equals -1. And then if the animation underscore timer chance is less or equal to 0, then we know that we want to try to see if we can blink or look left or right. The only thing we want to do is make sure that we reset this variable to the original state, which is half a second. And now in here, we could say var chance equals AI random range. And we want a range between 0 and 100, so 100%. And all we really need to do is say if the chance is less or equal to 10, so 10%, then I want to do two things. So if it's going to be less or equal to, actually we'll just leave it at 10 and we can play around with it. So if our chance is going to be less or equal to 5, so 5%, then we're going to choose a certain direction to look. Otherwise, and I'll have a comment in here, otherwise we want to do some blinking. So all we need to do is change the animation state. So we could say animation state is going to be equal to choose, and then we can easily just say animation blocky state, and then we need to choose the right animation state to go into, which would be either look left or look right. So let's do animation state look left, or the animation black state dot look right. And in the create event, because we want it random, let's make sure that we throw in the randomize function here, so it won't be the same every time. All right, so I think that's actually it. Now we do have an error, so this error right here should be a semicolon, and that fixes everything. Okay, so let's hit F5. Let's run our game, and let's see what we got here. So our guy should come down and do that, and he'll go back up. And none of these guys are actually doing any chances. So let's throw in some debugging here. Let's see what this chance actually is. So we'll say show debug message of chance, and hopefully we actually get into here. Alright, so we do have some in there. I did see a 6. And what are we saying? If it is less than 10, then choose one of those states. Then the next time, okay, so actually what's happening here, let me explain here. Sorry about this long video, but what's happening is we are indeed changing the chance of the animation state. The frame is ending, and then it's coming all the way back up to here, and we are in the idle state. So right here, we are actually setting it back to idle. So what we need to do is, unfortunately, is take the animation code that we have here, and I can just cut it out and go all the way to the top, and in the idle animation, this is where we're going to have this. So it's going to check, it's going to minus the timer, and then it's going to come down and make sure that this is right. Okay, Then we do the chance, we set the animation state, and I guess we will say an else statement here because we only want to, actually we don't need that. Okay, so let's think about our transitions. So we're in the idle state, transition to the idle animation. So that means that we should already be in the idle state. And then if our animation chance timer hits 0, then we see if we have a 10% chance to come into this if statement. Otherwise, our idle state is just reset. 5% to go to one of those, and then the actually that would be bigger or equal than 5, and then the other would be blink, and then we randomly choose left or right. So when we come down to left or right, we go back to the idle state. Okay, so let's try this one more time. Sorry, I had to work that out. We'll keep looking up top. There, you can see one guy kind of look to the right. There we go, right and left. And hopefully if I come down here, there we go. Perfect. So really, I'm going to leave it up to you to do some of the blinking state. The code that we used is already set up. So if you've been following along, you can grab that code. And actually what I'm going to do is, if you are a patron supporter, I do have all of this code on GitHub. I will zip it up and put it on my Patreon page for you. So it will save you a lot of the typing that we have. But we've brought a lot of new animation to our character. I feel that he's working pretty good. The next thing that we're going to have to be working on is when he comes in here, I shouldn't be able to walk through him. Or if he lands on top of me, we're going to have to add some kind of hurt or damage, possibly some knockback for the player itself. But other than that, I feel our animation for this guy's done. Once again, sorry for the long video, but I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for watching, and a special thank you to Matt and Paul and the anonymous Patreon users that are part of the crew. Please subscribe and share this video with your friends and family. It'd be really nice to get a bigger audience. Once again, I'd like to thank you for watching.